Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to another episode of the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. We're back for week 13, the Falcons versus the Chargers here. It's going to be an interesting one. Obviously, the Falcons are coming off their worst two-game stretch of the season, blowing a game to the New Orleans Saints after a series of gaffes, including 3 missed field goals, ended up losing that game by 3 points. That was obviously not great. And then you go to Denver and just get the crap kicked out of you 38-6 and basically look non-competitive for most of that game. This is a big week for Atlanta, who are trying to fend off a furious charge from the Buccaneers, who are just one game back on Atlanta at this point. Obviously, effectively 2 games back because the Falcons do own that head-to-head tiebreaker. But other than that tiebreaker, there's not really much separating these two teams, despite the Falcons at one point having effectively, I believe, a 4-game lead or close to it. So Atlanta has slumped and the Bucs have risen to the challenge, and the Bucs have an easy schedule the rest of the way. So this is not something the Falcons can take lightly. This division is nowhere close to settled, and Atlanta's going to have to find a way to steal some wins against teams that look like they're better teams on paper, and I would definitely qualify the Los Angeles Chargers as one of those teams. The Falcons have to find a way to steal some games, and this might be their best opportunity to do so, given that the Chargers are coming off a short week with a Monday Night Football game against the Ravens up before the Falcons play them on Sunday, and the Falcons, of course, coming off a bye, so they will have 2 weeks of rest, essentially, to prepare for this Chargers game, whereas the Chargers will only have the 6 days of rest and preparation. So, that situation is typically favorable. Obviously, we hope that will end up turning out that way. It is back at home for Atlanta, which should be nice for the Falcons. But this is a tough game. These Chargers are no joke. This is the number 1 defense in the NFL pending Monday Night Football's result. I'm recording this early this week because some of you may know I'll be heading out for Thanksgiving this week, so I won't be able to record this later in the week. So we'll be working, of course, with some limited information, obviously, given that we don't have the full injury reports or anything like that yet. But at this stage, Chargers number 1 defense in the NFL and a respectable offense as well. This team is somewhat limited talent-wise, especially on offense, but they do have a great quarterback in Justin Herbert, and this team seems to be firing on all cylinders at this point in the season. So we will get into this game. This matchup, the latest on the injury report, again, kind of limited at this point in the week, but we'll talk about the key injuries to watch as we get into week 13 itself. Again, thanks everyone for joining us here on the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. Like, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Really appreciate that. Before we dive in, I want to bring you guys a word from our sponsor, BetOnline, folks. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number 1 source for online betting, from the earliest odds to even in-game live betting options. BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to bet on those games while they're happening. I would steer clear of the Falcons at this point. I would not bet on them, but they have plenty of other things to bet on. Whether you're a college football enjoyer, NFL, obviously they've got it all, NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC, MMA, whatever you're interested in betting on, they probably got some way to get in on that action. So what are you waiting for, folks? Head to that website, betonline.ag today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Make sure when you sign up to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to get access to the latest promotions. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, let's dive into the early inklings of injuries. Obviously, I'm recording this on Monday before Monday Night Football, so the Chargers could have a whole new slate of injuries. They're playing the Ravens. That's obviously a tough opponent, a physical opponent, so we'll see how this stuff shakes out. But as of right now, the Chargers have several questionable players going into this game, and some big names on there, right? They've got Hayden Hurst at tight end has been declared out. Denzel Perryman, their starting linebacker, he has been declared out as well. He did not practice all week with a groin injury, so that's definitely one to monitor for Sunday. Again, short week for these guys. Number of questionables as well. Bud Dupree, former Falcon, he's questionable with a foot injury. AJ Finley, the reserve safety, questionable with an ankle. Cornerback Cam Hart, starting corner, questionable with a concussion, although he did practice in full on the final day of practice, so it seems promising for his return. I believe cornerback Dean Leonard. He was a full participant. I think he's on IR to return, so we'll see if he gets activated. He was questionable as well. Khalil Mack was limited with a groin injury. He's questionable, but you kind of expect him to play. And same thing with Lai Bakonki, questionable with that shoulder injury. He's also questionable to play. But that's pretty much it right now for this team. We'll have to see what happens on Monday Night Football. Obviously, things can change. But that's something that I would recommend you guys monitor, obviously, since I'm not going to be able to keep track of it very much. Just watch the injury report. We'll have it up on the Falcoholic.com to keep track of those. But obviously some big names there. So if any of those guys can't go and are not able to practice in the preparation for Sunday against the Falcons, there's some serious names on there. So that could change the outlook, certainly, of that defense if a number of those guys are not able to go or they pick up any additional injuries. Right now, the Chargers pretty thin at linebacker. So that's definitely one to monitor. For the Falcons, you guys know the Falcons names, the guys that this team, missed last week, essentially. Right now, we're really looking at a couple of guys with concussions, right? Charlie Werner at tight end is a huge one. The run game really tanked without him, which was kind of surprising. But again, maybe not that surprising given how important his run blocking has been to this team. So that's definitely one to monitor. Again, we haven't gotten any updates on these guys over the last week because, again, they were on bye. They don't do injury reports for the bye week. So let's take a look at the rest of these guys. Another big question, obviously, is Drew Dahlman going to play? He was active for week 12, active for week 11, didn't end up playing. So that was obviously strange, right? But in terms of guys to monitor, Charlie Werner obviously is one. D. Alford at corner is another. Mike Hughes at corner, another one. J.D. Bertrand, hoping that he's able to come back from his concussion. He was downgraded after practicing Wednesday, Thursday to DNP, which is obviously a bad sign for him. But again, a whole week off. Hopefully that will help. And then Troy Anderson at linebacker, he was limited all week. Didn't end up going, even though Raheem Morris said that he would. And the other one to monitor, obviously, would be Zach Harrison, who was hurt in the game, along with Kevin King at corner. Those are two guys that left the game with injuries. Darnell Mooney as well left with a hamstring injury, but we were told after the game that it was a minor thing, not something that would affect his availability. So we'll hope that that's the case. But yeah, this Falcons team really, really beat up going into that bye week. So hopefully they're able to get these guys back rested, healthy, and back home for a better performance because, we all watched that Broncos game and it was hella ugly. Those guys did not look ready to go. That was extremely concerning. So we'll have to hope that the Falcons can have a better go of it this week with this rest against a team that, is on par, I would say, certainly with the Broncos defensively. Statistically, they're better. They've played an easy schedule. I believe their strength of schedule is very low. Like, I think they're 29th according to PFF's strength of schedule metric. I don't know how that differs from other sources, but so the Chargers have definitely played an easy schedule. Atlanta obviously is familiar with that, but they got to find Falcons got to find a way to get on top of this team, and we'll see if anything changes with the injury report going into the weekend. But right now, the Falcons are just hoping to get a lot of those key guys back because that could really change things, especially for the run game, which, as we'll talk about, that's going to be a key to this game. How the Falcons are able to run the football, I think, will be one of the most important things in this entire football game. So let's move on, speaking of, to those matchups, talk about how this Falcons offense can try to go about attacking this number one ranked in scoring Chargers defense. All right, as I said, Chargers number one in scoring, really impressive, 145 total points allowed. Obviously, we'll see if Monday Night Football changes that metric. It probably will. They're playing the Ravens. It's going to be a high-scoring game potentially, so that'll probably change. But still an impressive number, no matter what happens on Monday night. 10th in total yardage too. So this is a very good defense, no doubt about that. And at this stage, this defense is very good against the pass. They're 5th in net yards per attempt allowed against the pass. But against the run, they're vulnerable. 4.7 yards per carry allowed. That's 23rd. So that, I think, is the secret to attacking this defense ultimately, is you want to be able to run the football on them, which is what they want to do to you, conversely. So, I think for the Falcons, getting that run game back going and getting the consistency going there is going to be critical. They're going to have a hard time throwing the ball unless this injury report for them, really shakes out poorly. The Falcons are going to be looking to run the ball and not put this ball up in the air too much. We did hear Raheem Moore's talk today at his Monday press conference that basically the Falcons are going to be incorporating a lot more play action. They think that's a really strong part of their offense. They want to do that more. I mean, yeah, that's great. I'm glad we're going to do more of that. Thanks, guys. But, that is a smart thing, obviously, to do. I wish they would have considered doing it sooner, but, I think that's smart. So, the run game emphasis should help in that regard too. Hopefully they can do that. But this Chargers defense, again, no joke. This is a tough unit to go against. They've got a very good front. Khalil Mack is having a tremendous season, even at his age. They've got Joey Bosa on the other side. One of my draft crushes, Tuli Tupulatu. He's been having a good year for them. They do have some run defense weaknesses on the interior. Poona Ford is another guy, their nose tackle. When they've got him on the field, he's been great. But really the weakness has kind of been in run defense for them up front. I think otherwise they've been pretty good. Khalil Mack is just awesome. Still amazing. But yeah, they've had some weaknesses in terms of their ability to defend the run. But in terms of the pass rush, they've been a pretty strong unit up front. Most of those run game weaknesses come from the linebacking core, which is, I think, pretty depleted right now. I know they've had to turn to Troy Dye at linebacker, former 4th rounder, who has not played a ton this year. I believe he's only played a handful of games. Did have to play in week 11. Looks like he might have to play again in week 12. Significant number of snaps. We'll see how that goes. They do have second-year linebacker Diane Henley, one of my Senior Bowl crushes as well. He's been good for them. But without Denzel Perryman, the linebacker core is a little bit thin, obviously. And then at safety, they've been getting a great season out of Elijah Molden at one spot. They do have Derwin James, who's been playing, I think, the slot for them more. But we know he's versatile. Alohi Gilman at the other safety spot, he's been kind of a little bit more of an issue. But, ultimately that group is pretty good. And then the corners, they've been getting a good year out of rookie Cam Hart. What do you know? Another one of my draft crushes that the Falcons didn't take. He's having a decent season for them as a rookie starter. And they're getting a career year out of Christian Fulton at the other cornerback spot. This was a guy who, former 2nd round pick, never really took off anywhere. 2023, arguably his worst year as a pro, comes here. He is having a tremendous season for them. So good for him. And they need, the help. They're potentially down some corners. So this is a good opportunity, obviously, to get him out there, and they've gotten some good snaps. So really, I think the defense is it's sort of the opposite of the Falcons, right? Like, the Falcons don't have the talent or the scheme, but I think the Chargers have a lot of pieces, but I think the scheme is even helping them more than the sum of their parts. So this is a very good defense. It's fun to watch. They're very, very structurally sound. And the Falcons are going to have their hands full trying to throw on these guys. Really, the run game, I think, is going to be key for them. We'll see what happens up front for the Falcons. I think that's a key part of this game. Is Drew Dalman coming back? Like, why did he not play last week? They needed the run game desperately. That's the thing that Ryan Newsel really doesn't do. He's just not a very good run blocker. He's a solid pass blocker. He's your backup center. Drew Dalman's one of the NFL's best run blockers. They need him. They need him really badly. So we'll hope that he's back out there this week and can help with that. We know Bijan is having a career year in his 2nd season. Good for him. And, if Darnell Mooney's back, this wide receiver core can hang, but can they have success against this good of a secondary, this good of a defense? Can they pass protect long enough? I think you'd be wise to lean more on the run game, try to take advantage of these Chargers if you can. This is a tough matchup. You do have the rest advantage. Hopefully that helps. Had the extra time to prepare. But yeah, offensively, the Falcons are going to have a tough time scoring points. It's the number one scoring defense in the NFL. So they're going to have to find a way to get it done. They do have some of these advantages, like we said, but tough matchup for Atlanta, obviously, going against a defense this good. They have not fared particularly well against good defenses thus far. They went completely in the tank against the Broncos, which is very concerning. So hopefully they can do a little bit better this week with the extra prep and hopefully some guys getting back healthy. Let's now turn the page over to the much more concerning matchup for Atlanta every week, which is how this Falcons defense is going to match up with the impressive ascending Chargers offense. All right, you take a look at this Chargers offense. A lot of big names here, right? You've got Justin Herbert at quarterback, who is having a really good season, which of course I'm happy about as a Justin Herbert dynasty owner. But they have a good offensive line. Obviously, Rashawn Slater is awesome at left tackle. Joe Alt, the rookie, has been having a great season, converting to right tackle. I think, the interior is a bit more vulnerable, right? Zion Johnson in his third season is playing well. And I think they're getting good play out of Trey Pipkins too at right guard at this point. But I think center Bradley Bozeman has been struggling. So that's kind of the weak point of this line. It's probably not going to matter because the Falcons don't get pressure on anyone, but that is something to keep in mind. At wide receiver, it is a limited passing game in terms of their options. Obviously, Ladd McConkey, as a rookie, is having a great season. He's one of their top targets. Quentin Johnston is what he is, right? He is a deep threat only. Falcons have given up a lot of stuff deep lately, and Justin Herbert can certainly sling it, so that's concerning for this team in this matchup. But that's kind of what he is, and he's just as liable to drop it if there's any pressure on him whatsoever. So, you're going to have to be concerned with that, but, he is what he is. Josh Palmer, solid receiving option for them. This isn't a terrifying receiving corps. They have started to really utilize Will Dissly at tight end. So good for Will. He has been very good as a receiver. He's been getting a ton of targets. So that's something the Falcons are going to have to account for. Herbert's been loving tossing the ball to Will Dissly. And then, the Chargers do have an effective run game. It's not been super efficient. It's they're 20th in yards per carry, just averaging 4.2. But they're really leaning on it. They're 7th in attempts, 11th in total yardage. So it's not been a super efficient run game, but it has been an effective one overall. So that is something to monitor. And the Falcons have, of course, been terrible defending the run. So hopefully they've fixed some of those issues. But yeah, by the same token, again, like I said, the Chargers do have some interesting options at their receiving spots, but they are 31st in the NFL in attempts. They are not throwing the ball very often. They're 20th in passing yardage, but they are efficient passing, right? 10th in net yards per attempt. So they do have the ability to throw the ball. They do it efficiently. They just don't overly rely on it. So that is something to keep in mind. We'll see if that changes against the Ravens. That could be more of a shootout type game, but we'll see how that develops. But overall, this team, pretty average offensively, maybe slightly below 18th in points, 19th in yardage. But this is a solid offense, not necessarily a terrifying one, but I'm not sure how much that matters against this Atlanta defense, which, as I'm sure Falcons fans are well aware of, this defense has quickly degenerated into being one of the worst in the NFL. They are 25th in points and 24th in yards, and they just gave up 38 to the Denver Broncos, and basically the Broncos kicked them around the field, and it was a joke. I mean, the Broncos could have put up 50 if it was any sort of contest. So really bad defense for Atlanta. Obviously the injuries do play a part, but that whole defense looked like they didn't even want to be out there. So they have a lot of issues personnel-wise and schematically. We'll see who ends up coming out and playing corner for them, who's healthy. Getting Mike Hughes back and D. Alford back in the slot would be huge for them. They're going to need slot defender, a good slot defender against Ladd McConkey. Richie Grant can't be your slot defender. We can't do this. We can't do this anymore. Just got absolutely torched and took bad angles, coverage busts. You can't have that. That's not an option. So they're gonna have to figure something else out. Natrone Brooks, please, because Richie Grant was unplayable as a slot corner. But at this point, really, like, can you generate any kind of pass rush? Can you do anything up front to get pressure on the quarterback? I get this is a good offensive line, especially at tackle. I'm not sure how much success they're going to have there. It's probably going to be a long day defensively. But, maybe the interior, if you can find some way to get Jarrett and Onyemata going, can Matt Judon give you anything? Ebiketie has been solid. He's really been your only solid pass rusher. Khalid Kareem off the practice squad has been more productive than Judon and Lorenzo Carter at this point. So, getting those young guys out there, seeing if you can get anything. We'll see if Ruka Roro can return at some point. Brandon Dorlus played his first snaps. Maybe they try to lean more on him. But this defense has issues everywhere. If the secondary is healthy, that's your one strength. Although the team has kind of limited the impact of their two great safeties. Justin Simmons hasn't really been utilized well. Jesse Bates is trying to play hero ball because he knows if he doesn't get picks, his team's going to get destroyed. The linebacker play has been a big downgrade from last year. Landman and Ellis have not looked comfortable in this new scheme. Landman's clearly not healthy, but they don't really have any options considering their other linebackers are both hurt. So, this is a rough defense to watch, I guess, it's the quick takeaway here. And the Chargers, if the Falcons haven't been able to make any changes to this and these guys aren't healthy, I don't really think the Chargers are going to have any trouble moving the ball against this defense, which means it's another shootout. And you're not going to win a shootout against the number one defense in the NFL right now. It's just not going to happen. So the defense is going to have to figure something out to limit this offense to some degree. But this is a rough matchup for Atlanta. There's no way around that. Like it's they don't really have teeth on defense. Maybe the bye week will help them find some. But at this stage, I just don't trust this defense really to stop anything. And, you're going up on the other side against the number one defense. Really, I think the Falcons are hoping that this Chargers team is tired coming off a Monday night game. Maybe they can take advantage of that. They're better rested. They've had a lot of time to prepare. Falcons offense is going to have to win games for them going forward. I don't have any faith in this defense whatsoever. So that's kind of the takeaways. Can the Falcons offense score enough points to win? Can the defense get you a couple punts, maybe a turnover here or there? That's kind of all you can expect from this defense at this point, unless something drastically changes. This is one of the NFL's worst pass rushes in NFL history. So, you're just very limited with what you could expect. If they could at least stop up the run, that would be helpful, especially against this team, but they haven't been particularly good at that either. They've been decent in terms of efficiency. They're only 19th in yards per carry allowed, so they're just a little bit below average compared to, against the pass, 22nd. But this is a rough defense. And talent-wise, there's no help coming. They're just having to pray for some injuries to go away, to stay a little bit healthier, so that you can maybe get a functional defense out of this. But they're not helping themselves with the scheme either. So if they don't make any changes there, I'm really not convinced this defense is going to provide much resistance for any opponent that they're going up against. And that could lead to catastrophic results. So you've had 2 weeks to prepare, Jimmy Lake. Let's see what this looks like. Can you do anything at all to slow down the Los Angeles Chargers, who are one of the best coach teams in the NFL, clearly at this point? That, this is going to be a big test for these Falcons and this coaching staff to show that they're a legitimate coaching staff and they're not going to get blown off the turf by anyone that puts together a semi-competent game plan. So, big test. I obviously don't have a ton of faith for the Falcons in this one. I think this is a bad matchup for them. I think any teams they play that have great defense, they're probably going to lose. I don't know that they can do a whole lot offensively against great defenses. They're kind of limited offensively with what they can do at this stage. Now, that could change, right? If you get Drew Dahlman back, Charlie Werner's back, and the running game takes off, I think that will help make you less one-dimensional and more consistent offensively. Obviously, I think the passing game has the potential to be really good. It just hasn't done it consistently at all. They've beat up on bad NFC South teams and not really done a whole lot else. Obviously, the late surge against Philly was great to see, but this team is so inconsistent. I just don't know what to expect on a week-to-week basis. And going up against a top defense, I don't think is something that's going to be great for them. So it's really going to come down to, can they prepare and get the guys healthy they need to compete in this game and try to steal a win here against a superior Chargers team? That's going to be the key. And they've got to find a way to steal a win from the 3 tough teams they still have to play. They've got to get a win against either these Chargers or the Vikings, and you have to go to Minnesota, so that's going to be tough. Or the Commanders. Now, the Commanders game is looking a little bit easier, but don't forget, the Falcons just don't beat the Commanders. They lose in the craziest ways to that Commanders team. It doesn't matter if the Commanders are terrible or good or whatever. They lose to the Commanders. So I would not count on that Commanders. Even though that team does seem to kind of be falling off, this team has a really hard time ever beating the Washington Commanders. So I would not bank on that one. So that means you got to win one of these two games coming up, and going to Minnesota, that's going to be a tough one. No doubt about that. So this is when you have the huge rest advantage, the preparation advantage, all this stuff. This is probably the one you got to find a way to win. And if you do, you're in good shape. Then at that point, if you get this win, you're hoping to be able to defeat the 3 cupcake, quote unquote, games left on your schedule, right? The New York Giants, who they're not competitive. You have to win that game. There's no question about that. The Las Vegas Raiders, who are a little bit more competitive, but that's not a team that anyone's really afraid of at this point. And then you have the Carolina Panthers, who, let's give the Panthers credit. I think they're playing a lot better, especially offensively. The thing is, that defense is still really bad. I know the Chiefs, they took the Chiefs to the wire. The Chiefs offense is not good right now. That Chiefs team is not anywhere near as good as their record shows. I think at a certain point, we're going to have to stop being they're winning all these 1-score games, so they're still great. That is not a great football team. They have a great quarterback. They have a great coaching staff. They're working miracles with that offense, making it functional. But, I think the Bills kind of showed you that they can be beaten. I think the Panthers showed you that they can be beaten. That defense is starting to show cracks. So the Carolina Panthers, they're a respectable team. It's a division game. That's probably going to be the toughest one. But again, the Panthers have a really, really bad defense, and the Falcons probably are going to be able to put up points. And that's, as if they can put up points, they can win. That's kind of the secret to this Falcons team. If they go up against a bad defense and they can put up the points, then they'll probably be okay. If they go up against a good defense, it's going to be a lot harder. So that's definitely something to monitor, especially these next 2 weeks against the Vikings and the Chargers. So that's kind of the main takeaway for me is if you steal a game, you're probably good to go the rest of the way, assuming you don't completely collapse. Because again, we've talked about what the Bucs have to do to get ahead of the Falcons. If the Falcons go 4-2, the Bucs have to win out. So if the Falcons get to 11 wins, or if the Falcons get to 10 wins, if the Falcons go 4-2 and get to 10 wins, the Bucs have to win out. That's the only path for them to get above 10 wins. They can't tie the Falcons. The Falcons have the head-to-head tiebreaker. Nothing else matters. If the Falcons win 3 games to finish 9-8, then the Bucs they can only afford 1 loss to get to 10 wins. And they still have to play the Chargers, and they still got a bunch of games left, right? They still got 6 games left. They have to go 5-1 to beat the Falcons in that scenario, which with one of those games being against the Chargers, so they don't have any wiggle room other than 1 loss. But that is obviously easier for them. So if the Falcons can go 4-2, I think it's unlikely the Bucs are winning 6 straight games. So we'll see. But if the Falcons can steal one of these games against one of these quote unquote good teams and win the easier games, they will win 10 games and probably feel pretty good about their chances of making the playoffs. If they can't steal a win and they only go 9-8, the Bucs can absolutely get ahead of the Falcons and win this division. The Bucs have a super easy schedule. They're getting healthier. It's still hard to go 5-1 the rest of the way, right? I mean, it's still difficult, but possible. So, Atlanta would be best served to win one of these games or more, and show, and not just sneak into the playoffs, coast in barely, just beating the Bucs on kind of a tiebreaker, right? I mean, it would be great if this team could actually look like they deserve to be in the playoffs and not just collapse. But, I know we're all probably feeling pretty dour about the state of this team and their ability to do that given the last 2 games. But things could change. You get a win here in week 13. Everyone's going to feel a lot better about this team, obviously. The Chargers are a good team. You beat them, you're feeling a lot better, and feeling like you can still finish strong. So there's a lot of opportunity for this team to do that. obviously recency is making me more pessimistic about the outlook for this team. I still think they should be the favorites to make the playoffs and win the NFC South, but it's got the margins have gotten tighter and the Bucs are getting healthier. So, just win, just win more games, and then you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. That's the easiest way. Obviously, if the Falcons are 100% in control of their destiny at this point, I believe they could probably afford. They could still lose one game and still have total control of their destiny because, again, the Bucs have to tie them. Like they can't tie them. They have to get ahead of the Falcons to win the division. So, Falcons still in total control until they're not, right? In these next 2 weeks, they could either take control completely or lose control and have to make up ground. So, we'll see. We'll see what this Falcons team does. But it's a tough spot. Obviously, we'll hope for the best. The Falcons can bounce back. The bye week can change your fortunes. Maybe they've been able to institute some changes, help the offense get more consistent, especially the run game. Maybe they'll add some new wrinkles. Maybe they'll fix up some of the defensive stuff and get healthy. Maybe that could be a path to a victory for this Atlanta team. So that's what we'll be hoping for here in Week 13 as Falcons take on the Chargers. Guys, thank you so much for joining us here on the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. Hope you enjoyed the Week 13 game preview. I'm Kevin Knight of Falcoholic Kevin. Follow me there. I'm also on Blue Sky at the same handle. You can check out the site, falcoholic.com, for that great written content this week. Also, of course, like, subscribe if you haven't done so already. It really helps us out. Leave a comment if you got something to say. We appreciate it. That helps us out too. Leave a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice if you want to help us out there. Helps the algorithm, helps the show grow. Thank you so much. And if you're interested in supporting the show, we got a Patreon at patreon.com/falcoholiclive. Check that out. Or if you're a YouTube enjoyer, you can check out the YouTube channel memberships for the same perks, just more YouTube oriented. So guys, thank you so much for hanging out here on the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. We will see you on Sunday for Week 13's clash. Until then, guys, have a great rest of your week. We'll see you then.